My wife cheated on me with her boss, and now she's trying to claim our house and $500, $0 in savings after secretly draining our accounts during the divorce process. I never saw the betrayal coming. Hello, everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be sitting here writing this out, but honestly, the worst betrayal of my life unfolded in a way I never saw coming. It all started with something so small, yet it turned into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. One night, I came home early from work, and what I saw in our living room changed everything. My wife, Lisa, was sitting on the couch, her face flushed, and her phone was buzzing nonstop. She was acting weird, more defensive than usual. I just had this gut feeling something was off, but I never expected the kind of betrayal that was waiting for me. Lisa and I had been together for nearly 10 years. We married young, built a life that looked picture perfect from the outside. She was always the bitchy, sharp-tongued type, but I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Our relationship had its ups and downs like any couple's, but we managed to keep things together. Until recently, she'd been acting distant, avoiding me and spending more time at her office than she ever used to. I thought it was work stress, but the signs kept piling up. That evening, I decided to surprise her with dinner. I'd been working late, so I wanted to catch her off guard. When I walked in, I saw her hunched over her phone, quickly sliding it away when I entered. Her face went pale and she tried to act normal, but I noticed her hands trembling. Her eyes darted away like she was hiding something. I asked her what was wrong, and she shot back with some bullshit about being stressed, needing a break, and how she'd been working late a lot lately. I wanted to believe her, I really did. But something was gnawing at me. I started noticing small things after that. Her phone kept going off at odd hours, she was more secretive. With her emails, and her wardrobe suddenly became more revealing, more sexy, more provocative. She'd wear tight outfits, flirt with her boss, Mark, at work. I'd catch her giggling on the phone, whispering in ways that made my stomach turn. I'd ask her about it, and she'd deny everything, calling me paranoid or jealous. But I wasn't jealous, I was confused. I just couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. Then one day, I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I didn't plan to snoop, but I was desperate for the truth. I found messages, flirty, intimate messages between her and Mark. They weren't just friendly banter, they were explicit. She was talking about meeting him after hours, how she loved the way he touched her, how she needed him. It was like a punch to the gut. I saw enough to know she'd been cheating on me for months, maybe longer. That moment hit me like a freight train. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted with everything, was lying to my face. She was screwing her boss, Mark, behind my back while I was working late trying to support us. The betrayal cut so deep I couldn't breathe. I felt numb, angry, and completely shattered all at once. I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I had to plan my next move carefully. I had to get proof, figure out how long this had been going on, and decide what to do about it all. And that's when I started to realize that Lisa wasn't just a cheating wife, she was a liar and a manipulator. She'd always been bitchy, yes, but I never thought she'd be capable of this kind of betrayal. The worst part, her attitude after I found out. She tried to gaslight me, call me crazy, say I was overreacting. She told me I was imagining things, that she loved me, that Mark was just a client, a friend, but I knew better. The evidence was right there in her messages, her secret meetings, her lies. I felt like I'd been punched repeatedly. I loved her, at least I thought I did, and now I was faced with a choice I never wanted to make. Do I forgive and try to fix this, or do I cut her out completely? I was furious, hurt, and somehow relieved that I finally saw the truth. But the pain of betrayal was so fresh, so raw, it felt like I was bleeding inside. I didn't know how I was going to get past this, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let her ruin me without a fight. After I found those messages, everything else in my life felt like it was spinning out of control. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept circling back to the images of her laughing with Mark, the way she'd lied so effortlessly. I was furious, but more than anything, I was hurt. How could she do this to me? After all these years, after everything we'd built, I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind or just naive. The reality was, I wasn't just betrayed, I was completely. The next step was obvious, but it was also the hardest. I had to confront her. I waited until she came home from work that evening, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor, her face trying to look casual but betraying her nervousness. I was sitting on the couch, my hands clenched, staring at her as she entered. Without wasting time, I pulled out her phone, showed her the messages. Her face froze, her eyes wide with shock. She stammered, trying to deny it all, claiming it was just work-related, that Mark was just a friend who was helping her with a project, that I was paranoid. I looked at her and said, "Lisa, I've seen everything. I know you've been cheating on me with Mark. How long has this been going on?" She tried to brush it off, saying I was overreacting, that I didn't understand, that she loved me. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. I told her I was done with her lies, that I wanted the truth. She finally broke down and admitted that they'd been seeing each other for a few months, that Mark had been helping her with her work, but it had gotten out of hand. She said she didn't mean for it to happen, that she was just lonely and stressed. Hearing her say that made my stomach turn. She was so convincing, so full of bullshit. I knew she was lying, that she'd been playing me all along. And her tone, so bitchy, so dismissive, made me realize she never cared about my feelings. She'd been selfish, scheming behind my back, and now she expected me to just accept it and move on. No way. I told her to pack her bags and leave, that I didn't want to see her face again until she was honest about everything. But I also knew that wasn't the end of it. Her lies had only just begun. That night, I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was how she'd betrayed me, how she'd lied so effortlessly, how she drained our savings and tried to manipulate me during the divorce. Because, yes, I found out she'd been secretly draining our bank accounts for months, probably to support her secret life with Mark. When I checked our bank statements, I saw multiple transfers, large sums disappearing without explanation. She'd been secretly taking money, probably planning to run away or at least keep her affair hidden until she was ready. I also discovered she'd been making arrangements to claim our house, saying she was entitled to half because she was married to me, even though she was the one cheating. I felt like I'd been punched again. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. She'd been draining our savings, possibly planning to disappear with her lover and leave me holding the bag. I was furious. How could she be so calculating, so manipulative? The more I looked into it, the more I realized she'd been planning her escape for months, secretly building her case to claim everything, even trying to make it look like I was the one at fault. The worst part was her attitude after I confronted her. She shrugged it off, acted like she was the victim. "You don't understand, Mark is just a friend," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "You're just jealous and insecure. I work hard, I deserve to be happy." That's when I saw her true colors, the bitchy, entitled side that she'd been hiding behind her pretty facade. She thought she could cheat, manipulate, and then turn everything around to make me look like the bad guy. It was infuriating. I knew I had to get ahead of her. I didn't want her to walk away with everything, especially not the house and our savings. I started gathering evidence of her financial misconduct, screenshots of bank statements, her secret emails, her texts with Mark. I also contacted a lawyer, knowing I needed to protect what was mine. I couldn't trust her anymore. Her lies had cut so deep I didn't know if I could ever believe anything she said again. In the meantime, I started making plans of my own. I needed to find a way to even the playing field. I wasn't just going to sit back and let her take what she wanted, her house, the money, everything. I had worked hard for those savings, and I wasn't going to let her drain me dry. I decided I'd fight her for the house, for the money, and for my dignity. I knew she'd try to manipulate the situation, spin it so she'd come out the victim, but I was done being played. I was ready for whatever came next. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this was just the beginning. She lied, cheated, and tried to steal from me both emotionally and financially. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I'd fight for what's mine, and I'd make sure she paid for what she did. It was a terrible, humiliating wake-up call, one I never wanted, but I was determined to come out of this stronger, even if it meant tearing her down first. The days that followed were a blur of planning, anger, and a strange sense of clarity I'd never experienced before. I spent hours poring over bank statements, emails, and texts, trying to piece together exactly how much Lisa had drained from our accounts and how deep her manipulation ran. She'd been so brazen about it, secretly siphoning money into accounts I didn't even know existed. It was like she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. I found evidence that she'd been communicating with her lawyer behind my back, trying to make her case to claim the house and the savings, all while pretending to be the innocent victim. I couldn't believe how quickly everything unraveled. One moment I was thinking we were fine, just going through normal marital issues, and the next, I was staring at proof that she'd been lying to my face for years. It was sickening. I felt betrayed, furious, and an overwhelming sense of loss. But I knew I had to act fast. If she was planning to leave with everything, I had to stop her before. She drained the last cent and walked away with my house. I hired a lawyer immediately. I wanted to make sure I was protected, legally, financially, everything. I told him everything I knew, handed over all the evidence I'd collected, and explained that Lisa was trying to claim our house and half of our savings after secretly draining our accounts. The lawyer was cold but professional, and he assured me he'd do everything to stop her from ripping me off. We started the process of freezing our joint accounts and filing for a protective order. I also contacted a private investigator to look into her financial activities more deeply, anything to get ahead of her. Meanwhile, Lisa was still playing her game. She kept insisting her affair with Mark was just a fling, that she loved me, that I was overreacting. Her tone was bitchy, dismissive, like I was some paranoid lunatic. She'd throw tantrums, accuse me of trying to ruin her, and try to spin her lies into, I just needed a little excitement, as if that made everything okay. But I saw through her bullshit. I knew she was trying to manipulate the situation, trying to make me look like the bad guy so she could claim everything easier. One night I caught her trying to transfer more money out of our joint account. I was on the phone with my lawyer when I saw her hurriedly typing on her laptop. My blood boiled. I confronted her right then and there. She tried to deny everything, but I had the proof, screenshots, bank alerts, everything. I told her she was done, that I was going to stop her from stealing from me anymore. That was the moment I realized how far she'd gone. She was willing to lie, cheat, drain our savings, and probably leave me with nothing just to keep her affair secret. Her attitude was relentless. She called me paranoid, crazy, and told me I was accusing her of stuff she didn't do. She even tried to gaslight me, saying I was imagining things, that I was just jealous because Mark was more successful or whatever bullshit she thought would work. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw her for what she was, a manipulative, entitled woman who thought she could get away with anything. She'd been lying to my face for months. And now she was trying to turn the tables on me. The financial mess she left behind was staggering. I discovered she'd been secretly paying Mark for rent, gifts, and even trips. She'd been funneling money into accounts under fake names, probably trying to hide her assets. I was furious at how she'd betrayed me, and at the same time, I was terrified she might succeed in taking everything. That's when I decided I wouldn't let her get away with it. I'd fight her in court, I'd expose her lies, and I'd do everything I could to keep what was mine. But beneath all that anger, I also felt a strange sadness. I kept asking myself how we'd gone from being a normal couple to this, how she could cheat, drain our savings, and try to steal our house while pretending she was innocent. It hurt more than I can say. I'd trusted her, loved her, and now I was seeing her for what she really was, a selfish, manipulative woman who only cared about herself. I knew I'd have to confront her again soon, face her bitchy attitude and her lies, but I was ready. I wasn't going to let her win, not without a fight. I also started to think about what comes next. I had to prepare for the possibility that she'd try to take everything, our house, our savings, even the clothes on her back. I had to be smarter, more strategic. I knew I couldn't just fight her in court and hope for the best. I had to be one step ahead. That meant documenting everything, consulting with more experts, and making sure I was in the best position to protect myself. I was angry, yes, but I also realized I needed to stay calm and focused. If she was trying to manipulate me, I had to outsmart her. And that's exactly what I was going to do. The legal battle was just beginning, and I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me every day. I spent hours in my lawyer's office, poring over documents, strategizing, and trying to stay one step ahead of Lisa's manipulations. She was still insisting her affair was innocent, that Mark was just a friend, and kept throwing around the idea that I was insecure and jealous. But I didn't buy any of her lies anymore. I knew her game, and I knew she was trying to spin everything in her favor. One day, I got a call from my lawyer with some shocking news. Lisa had secretly transferred a significant chunk of our savings into an offshore account, probably to hide her assets and make it impossible to recover what she stole. I was furious. That was the moment I realized how far she was willing to go just to get what she wanted. She was trying to wipe us out, to leave me with nothing, so she could run off with Mark and a clean slate. I decided I needed to act fast. I instructed my lawyer to freeze all her accounts, including the offshore ones she'd been funneling money into. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace all her financial activities, every transaction, every transfer, every suspicious deposit. I wanted to prove she was deliberately hiding assets, and I wanted to make sure she couldn't drain any more money. It was a risky move, but I was determined to protect what was mine. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude was getting even more bitchy and confrontational. She'd call me names, accuse me of controlling her, and insist she was the victim. "You're just insecure," she sneered one day. "Mark and I are just having some fun. You're overreacting because you're jealous." I couldn't believe how manipulative she was being. She kept trying to make me feel guilty, but I refused to let her. I knew her game now, and I wasn't going to fall for it. The court hearings were brutal. Lisa showed up dressed to impress, with her bitchy smirk and her fake tears, trying to paint herself as the wronged wife. She claimed she was entitled to half the house because we were married, even though she'd been cheating and secretly draining our accounts. She argued that she deserved the money because she worked hard, yet she'd been secretly siphoning funds for months. I stood there, feeling a mixture of anger and disgust, knowing I had the evidence to prove her lies. One of the most startling moments was when the judge asked her about the offshore accounts. She tried to deny everything, but I had the forensic accountant's report in hand, showing detailed evidence of her financial deception. The courtroom was silent as she realized her lies were crumbling. That day, I knew I had a fighting chance to keep our house and the savings. I felt a small sense of victory, but I also knew this was just the beginning of a long, exhausting battle. Throughout it all, I kept thinking about how she had drained our life savings, how she'd been planning her escape behind my back. She lied to my face, cheated on me, and then tried to steal everything we'd built. It made me question everything: trust, love, loyalty. But I also learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was stronger than I thought, that I could stand up against betrayal and manipulation. I realized that sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect what's yours, and that vengeance isn't just about revenge. It's about reclaiming your dignity and your life. I also started to see how deeply this had hurt her too. Her arrogance, her bitchy attitude, her manipulations, all of it was a desperate attempt to control the narrative. But I wasn't going to let her control the outcome anymore. I was determined to come out on top, no matter what it took. I kept telling myself that, even when the nights felt long and the stress was overwhelming. I had to be patient. I had to stay focused. Because if I didn't, she'd walk away with everything, and I'd be left with nothing but heartbreak and betrayal. And I refused to let her do that to me. The court's decision finally came after what felt like an eternity. I sat there, trying to keep my composure, as the judge announced that our house would remain in my name, and Lisa's claims to the savings were due to her fraudulent activities. It felt like a small victory, but I knew it wasn't over yet. Lisa was still bitchy and manipulative, and she was determined to fight back. Her face twisted in anger when she realized she wouldn't get her way easily, and her attitude grew even more hostile. The aftermath was a whirlwind of chaos. Lisa, refusing to accept defeat, started trying to turn friends and family against me, claiming I was controlling, abusive even. She was spreading rumors, trying to make it look like I was the villain. That's when I realized she'd been playing a long game, trying to destroy my reputation, all while secretly planning her escape with Mark and whatever money she could still siphon off. But I had learned my lesson. I had evidence, a solid legal case, and a plan. I doubled down on protecting myself. I changed all my passwords, closed any suspicious accounts, and hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her. I didn't trust her anymore, and I was prepared for her next move. I also started the process of rebuilding myself emotionally, seeking therapy and leaning on friends who had been there from the start. I had to rebuild my trust in myself because I felt like I'd lost so much. Lisa's bitchy attitude remained, even after the court ruling. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was the one who betrayed her, even though I had all the proof of her affair and financial deception. She was furious that I had fought back, that I was exposing her lies, and she threw herself into her manipulations harder. She'd yell at me during visits, call me names, and accuse me of ruining her life. But I stayed calm. I knew that her anger was just a cover-up for her guilt and frustration. One day, she tried to threaten me with the idea of taking me to court for custody of the house, even though she knew she was in the wrong. She claimed I was abusive, controlling, that I'd never let her be free. It was classic Lisa, trying to turn the tables, trying to make herself look innocent. But I'd learned to see through her bullshit. I had surveillance footage of her secretly meeting with Mark, bank records showing her draining our savings, and witnesses who could testify to her manipulative behavior. I knew I had the upper hand. Looking back, I realized how much this whole ordeal changed me. I became more cautious, more guarded, but also more determined. I learned that people can hide their true colors behind a pretty face and a bitchy attitude. I learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to repair. And I learned that sometimes you have to fight dirty to protect what's yours. The betrayal was a brutal lesson, but it also awakened a resilience I didn't know I had. Now, I'm slowly rebuilding my life. I've moved into a new place, started focusing on my career again, and I'm trying to forget the nightmare Lisa put me through. I've realized that I don't need someone like her, especially not a woman who lies, cheats, and drains my life savings. The house is safe, my bank accounts are secure, and I'm finally starting to breathe again. But I'll never forget what she did or how she made me feel. That betrayal will stay with me forever, a reminder of how fragile trust is and how important it is to protect yourself from people who only care about their own selfish needs. If there's one thing I want to say to anyone going through something similar, it's this: don't ignore the signs. Trust your instincts. Fight for yourself, even if it means fighting dirty. Because once someone crosses that line, it's almost impossible to go back. But you can survive and you can come out stronger. I did. And I will. Looking back now, I realize that this entire nightmare was a wake-up call. Lisa's betrayal shattered the illusion of a perfect life I had worked so hard to build. It's funny how someone you trust implicitly can turn out to be the one person capable of ripping everything away in an instant. The betrayal cut so deep that I thought I'd never recover, but I did. I had to, because at the end of the day, I learned that the only person who truly matters in protecting my life and my sanity is me. The process of fighting back, exposing her lies, and reclaiming what was mine taught me more about myself than I ever thought possible. I found a strength I didn't know I had, an edge that helped me stand tall even when everything around me was falling apart. I learned that sometimes you have to be ruthless, relentless, and smart to stop someone who's willing to do anything to get what they want. And I learned that no matter how much it hurts, you have to keep going. Now I live with a cautious optimism. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but I refuse to let it define me. I've moved on from the chaos, from her bitchy attitude and manipulations. I've rebuilt my life, better, stronger, and more aware. The house is mine, the savings are secure, and I've learned to trust myself again. I don't look at relationships the same way anymore. I know now that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, and that sometimes the only way to survive is to stand your ground and fight back. If there's anything I could say to someone caught in a similar situation, it's this: don't be afraid to fight for yourself. Don't let anyone steal your peace or your hard-earned life. Be smart, be tough, and don't let their lies and manipulations break you. Because in the end, the only person who can truly protect you, no matter how much it hurts, is yourself. And trust me, once you've been betrayed that badly, you'll realize just how much strength you have hidden inside. I found mine, and I'm never letting go of it again.